So I'm Dr. Terry Aris, and I am the director of the School of Nursing here at Cal State Dominguez Hills. So I grew up in the Inland Empire in the Pomona and the Claremont areas. I started off my academic career while I was in high school, which was a great jump start because I could take classes in the evening. And I started at my local community college, which was Citrus Community College. From there, I transferred over to the nursing program at Mount San Antonio College in Walnut. And so at the time, I really wanted to attend a Cal State school, but unfortunately for nursing, they're very impacted programs. And so I was not able to get into a nursing program, and I was able to get into a community college. So I really understand that pathway from community college for the associate degree and then being a transfer student into the CSU, which is what I did later. So I transferred after I got my nursing degree, started working, and probably not many people know this about me. I actually started the bachelor BSN program at Cal State LA. But their program was very traditional. I had to be on that campus 3 days a week or 2 days a week taking my classes, and it was very difficult because I was working full time. So I quit. But then I found out about Dominguez Hills. Dominguez Hills was always a little different because the program at Dominguez Hills was designed specifically for working nurses, and it was set up so you didn't have to come to campus. You could go to your local hospitals in the area or public health departments where the classes were held, and it was only one day every 2 weeks. So it was very doable with my work schedule. So I am an alum of the BSN program at Dominguez Hills. And following that, I took about a 2-year break maybe, and then jumped into the MSN program here at Dominguez Hills as well. And Dominguez Hills had just brought up their online program. So I was very lucky. I was in one of the first groups to enter the master's degree in the online program. Some years after that point in time, I got a call from one of my former professors saying, we could probably use you as faculty over here. So would you consider coming and applying for a faculty job at Dominguez Hills? And I thought about it and I said, yeah, that really interests me. But what that meant is that now I needed a doctoral degree, which of course the CSUs don't really provide doctoral degrees. In a few there's a few exceptions. So to achieve my PhD, I had to look outside of the Cal State system. And I earned my PhD from Villanova University in Philadelphia, which is a private school. So it was a very different experience going from all public education to now jumping into a doctoral program in a private Catholic institution. When I was in high school, I was really interested in the sciences. As the oldest child, I was used to caretaking others and being of service. And I really wanted to go to medical school. But part of what I was able to figure out, thankfully, early on is that that career isn't so family friendly. And I felt like nursing would be that sort of that in between, that best of both worlds. With that in mind, I would say my most memorable experiences have been the flexibility and the variety that it afforded me. Really unlike medicine. When you go into medicine, you find a specialty and you pretty much stay in that specialty at all times, and your day-to-day is somewhat similar. But in nursing, I started off in a hospital. I left the hospital and I started working in a factory as a nurse in a factory. Then I moved out of state. When I moved, I transitioned into doing home care nursing, came back to California, worked as a home health nurse in all of LA County. So I would see patients as far east as Claremont, as far north as Agoura, down into South Central and the South Bay, all the way to the Orange County line. So I was kind of like all over the place. And then after that, I transitioned back into the hospital when I had a family of my own. And I started working in the neonatal intensive care unit with very sick babies. And so I was there for a very long time, and working in that kind of a setting before I then came over to the academic world. So I think that that's a great example about how flexible, if you are willing to walk through doors, take chances, start at the bottom again, oftentimes take a pay cut, you can really move in different directions to kind of satisfy that ongoing need you have for a different adventure or a different set of colleagues or a different set of patients that you're caring for. It's just the nursing career has provided an extreme amount of flexibility and really autonomy for me. I can't speak for all faculty. That would be a really interesting research question. So, maybe something you want to think about doing. For me, though, I can say probably the biggest expectation is that students be prepared. And whether you're in a live classroom or whether you're in an online classroom, faculty are only as good as the preparation that students have and the kinds of questions and the dialogue that we engage in. For example, I might do a Zoom session in review for an exam that's coming up. And I'll have some students that come and they show up and I say, okay, what questions do you have? What content are you struggling with? Let's get down to it. And they're like, well, I don't have any questions. And then I'll have other students that show up to that same meeting and they're like, well, I have questions. And you can see they have their notes. And so I can tell that student is prepared because that student went through the outlines of what the exam was going to be about, identified their concerns about their knowledge over certain topics, formulated a question, and then we started engaging in dialogue. And of course, the whole Zoom room benefits from that, but it was those people that prepared that often had the highest grades in the class. Not because I was giving them the answers, but because they knew what they needed to fill in. So I think that's just one example of how, we want students to do the reading before they come to class so we can talk about the meat of what's more difficult to understand. It's impossible in nursing because there's such a huge amount of information for us to lecture and try to put all the information you need into your brain. So there needs to be really active learning going on, and there needs to be engagement and participation. And sometimes, as another example, I'll hear back on one of the student, you know how you do the course evaluations at the end of your courses? So a student will write, well, these assignments didn't really pertain to the class or didn't pertain to, where I'm going for my role in nursing. And I think, wow, how did I miss so badly that, at least one student left my class without understanding how critical this assignment is to their future work. So had they said that in class, we could have a conversation about why do you think that this assignment doesn't apply to the work? Or let's talk about how it applies, what those application points are. It's definitely trickier for student involvement. I wouldn't say it's because of the nature of the online education. I would say it's more because our students are working. And so finding time to participate in another way is oftentimes difficult for them. But we do have opportunities. We have several committees, and we like to have student representatives on those committees. Unfortunately, it's oftentimes hard for us to get students to volunteer in that role. There are certain periods of time where faculty are working on research projects and they're able to bring a student in to that project. And also we have a nursing honor society. It's called Sigma Theta Tau International. And we invite students that meet the criteria to become members. Dominguez Hills has a chapter, it's called Xi Theta. And all of the Southern California chapters get together once a year, usually in the fall, late fall, and put on a research conference. And really then we sit at a table as colleagues, right? Students and faculty alike are sitting at the table kind of together, engaging in listening to the presentations from other chapters in our honor society. So those are some examples of some of the opportunities that we have to work together. With regards to being here at Dominguez Hills, I feel like my greatest accomplishment is to continue to support our graduate clinical nurse specialist program. We have 3 different programs because each program has a different focus: adult gerontology, pediatric, and neonatal. And why I'm calling out that program in particular, because all of our programs are great, but this is a program that has been in decline nationally, and lots of schools have been closing down their clinical nurse specialist program, whereas our nurse practitioner programs have been growing hugely. We're the only school currently in California that has all 3 populations: adult gero, pediatric, neonatal. A lot of schools have only one. So it's quite a commitment from Dominguez to support these programs that are smaller, and for our faculty and for our School of Nursing to continue to try to promote that role and these educational opportunities to nurses out there. So I would say professionally, that's probably one of the things I'm very proud about. Yes, so for work-life balance, I'm probably not the best person to pose that question to because I tend to work too much. But that being said, I think it's really important to prioritize family. And so when things, particularly, important milestones, when those things come up, I pretty much drop everything. I just need to be at those family events, and that is really uplifting and sort of recharges me. And then I think the other thing is it's really good to have social time with your coworkers. It really helps to do things socially, to get to know people on a different level. And that way, if they show up to work and they're not so pleasant that day, you kind of know in the back of your mind, oh, I know they're dealing with this issue back here, and I know that they've got other things on their mind. And so it just sort of gives you some grace as you're working with others to know what their challenges in life and what their joys in life are. And then the last thing I would say is, it's important to have hobbies. For some people, those hobbies are physical, not me, but I like sedentary hobbies, which probably isn't good for me, but it's relaxing to be able to scrapbook, and I like to sew and, do some of those kinds of things. I do my own manicures, so how does it look? Not bad. So those are the you have to pamper yourself a little bit, and it's different for everybody what that looks like. For some people, it's, spending that hour 3 times a week in the gym.